Hello everybody and welcome to today's episode of the Real Blue Podcast. I'm your host Conor O'Neill, joined today by a full house of guests, Chris Beesley, Joe Thomas and Gavin Buckland, as we look back on a very interesting and a wide-ranging of emotional weekend, I think it's safe to say, after Everton scores in the 99th minute against Wolves to rescue a point at Molineux before watching David Moyes' West Ham side come from behind to beat Leeds United 3-1 to London Stadium. It means the Blues, as we record on this Monday morning, remain outside the bottom three, with Newcastle set to host Leicester City at St James's Park tonight. Chris, you and Joe were obviously at Molineux on Saturday for a rather interesting contest, I think it's safe to say. What initial feelings have you got as you sit here right now this minute?
Well, we were just saying just before we went on air, obviously, the way it finished, it was incredible, really. Yeah, Everton hadn't looked like scored it, as have happened in so many games this season. It was a promising first half an hour, looked decent, goal out of nowhere. I said to Joe on the train back, how many times have we said the season? He said, I've mentioned that, my verdict. The ball been up one end of the pitch, Everton lose it cheaply, then within seconds it's down the other end. Something Sean Dyche mentioned in his press conference as well, the fact that they didn't take the foul where there was an opportunity to do so. After they fell behind, players out of position, which was from the start anyway, got worse with the injuries, Patterson going off, Calvert-Lewin going off, more players out of position, just didn't look scoring second half, tried various things, and then those 9 minutes added on, and right at the end of those 9 minutes, three centre-backs somehow combine in the opposition's opposition 6-yard box, and for Tarkowski flicks it down. Michael Keane, who's been going forward quite regularly, knocked it across, and Yerry Mina poked home from close range. And it's a massive difference. And in terms of it being the 1 point or the 0 points, that's probably not a huge difference. I guess what the huge difference is for Everton's morale going into that final game of the season. As like you say, as we speak, got everything crossed that Leicester City don't get a victory at St James's Park because Everton are in trouble. Then we'll discuss that. But as long as that doesn't happen, it's going to be in Everton's hands now going into that last game of the season. And after what has been a wretched season, the worst, in Everton's history, we can go on to that. But to be in that position where it could be in your own hands going into the last game of the season, I guess we'd have all taken that a few weeks ago.
Joe, one of the many challenging aspects of your role is writing live, obviously writing as the game unfolds and being in a position to file a lot of words as close to the final whistle as possible. One word that us journalists though hate and dread is the word rewrite. But on Saturday afternoon, I suspect that was a lot of glorious rewrite that you were forced to after Yerry Mina caught trunks in the 99th minute.
Yeah, I think it was the latest I've ever filed a match report, to be honest, the longest period after a game, because it was a dramatic rewrite, absolutely, because I think things were looking so grim from the moment that Nathan Patterson went off injured up until the 98th and a half minute. It was it was quite frankly horrible. And yeah, my match report was, I can't quite remember where it was going, but it was obviously very gloomy. It was basically along the lines of Everton's fate no longer resting in their own hands. And then that was true to a degree, even after Mina's goal, because obviously he had Leeds gone and won yesterday. Had Leeds gone and won yesterday, then if Leicester were to go and win tonight, then obviously Everton are relying on other scorelines and other teams on the last day of the season. But yeah, it just changed everything, that goal. And like Chris says, the momentum was so dramatic. And you just think it's probably one of the positive signs of going first for the relegation battlers of the weekend. Like, you can imagine the Leeds faithful and the Leicester faithful just watching that and thinking, well, Everton, we've got a real boost here. Everton losing at a team that should be on the beach. And in the end, obviously only beat a point, but yeah, it's a dramatic momentum shift, I think that is. Obviously, it didn't hold Leeds back to the extent where they went 1-0 up at West Ham, so I think there was a hangover on that respect, but it still would have hurt their preparations a little bit, and obviously in context now, it looks like a very valuable goal and an important point. So hopefully that will be the case. But yeah, I went down after the final whistle. I went down to the tunnel at Molineux. It was quite interesting being there, actually, because normally by the time you get down there, all the players are in, and you're only seeing bits and pieces as they kind of come out towards the coaches. But Wolves held their end of season player awards on the pitch after the final whistle. It was a really surreal kind of experience, because they have the the Wolves players getting all their awards, the first team, the youth teams, the women's teams. But all you can hear is the Everton fans that stayed late still celebrating the goals. So you got the Wolves end of season awards being taking place to the backdrop of Spirit of the Blues. And it was just a bit surreal. But because of that, the tunnel was just so busy, it was just really interesting watching everybody as he came and went. After that final was I spoke to James Sarkowski. It's interesting, Connor Cody, for instance, just obviously their back of Wolves ineligible to face his parent club, but clear that there's a lot of people that hold him in, a lot of respect there, people lining up to shake his hand and catch up with him, after the game. So that was quite interesting. But yeah, it was a massive rewrite, and it was just one of those games where, to be honest, you're just grateful that, it's happened at 3:00 on a Saturday, and, it's not, it's not 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, and you've only got an hour before the paper goes to print or whenever. So, so yeah, but I take that. In the circumstances. I take the blows to my body that Chris Beesley inflicted upon me as he celebrated on the final whistle, but had to try and keep it as locked down as possible so as not to break the press code rule of not celebrating goals. And then the rewrite that followed, you take it given the circumstances in which it was necessary.
Gav, I take it the thoughts of yourself were very different on 98 minutes to what they were on 99 minutes on Saturday when that ball hits the back of the net.
Well, I think I've still got the same thoughts, to be honest with you. Before I go on, by the way, I was in Lark Lane on Saturday night, and this lad on the next table goes, "I recognise your voice from the Royal Blue podcast." And I said, all right. He said, "Oh, yeah, how much he enjoyed it, And so Luke had said to give you the shout out. So there you go. Thanks for the compliment. I still feel the same now. In some respects, that goal doesn't really change my thoughts really about. I thought we've spoken a lot about team selection, didn't we, last week? And the general consensus on the podcast is that we didn't want to see McNeil play left back because it, robs us of our most potent attacking force in terms of goals scored and creativity. And so it was disappointing to see him left back when Holgate still should have been a better option for me. And what it did, which is probably not as unforeseen as the whole midfield balance was completely wrong. We ended up playing McNeil at left back. We had to make three changes in the midfield. You had Garner, who's probably been our best centre midfielder over the past 2 or 3 games, playing right wing. You had to Wolby, who either plays through the middle or plays on the right, playing a left wing. And then, because he actually goes into the middle of the pitch, you had this ridiculous, on occasions where Anana, Takore, Iwobi, Garner, Gabriel, all sort of like in the same sort of space. And so that one positional change caused so much disruption for the rest of the team. It wasn't worth it in terms of the benefits we got from playing McNeil at left back. And I thought that was poor from Dyche. And I thought some of his substitutions, which we may talk about, were also poor. And my feeling at the end of it, not Dyche's best day in the dugout, and we got away with one to a degree, at the end. And although I was relieved, I just thought, we've not done great there in the circumstances. Because let's face it, a decent effort performance would have been probably enough to win that game. Because I think Wolves were only, they were half on the beach, as they say. So, definitely a bit of relief at the end, Connor, but I'm still not. That doesn't really forgive the way the game was managed over the previous 98 minutes.
Gav leads us on quite nicely there, because one of my next points was Sean Dyche's selection.
Yeah.
His start lineup, and then obviously going to his substitute. But talking to one of my friends on Saturday evening, true to fat as always after the game, he says Sean Dyche was a lucky man there because he was left far from impressed by what he'd seen from the Everton boss, and believes he got away with one. Do you think he was lucky? Do you think he was even more a bit lucky there, Bees, after what we saw?
Yeah, it was very un-Sean Dyche-like in what we've seen Sean Dyche, in that he does seem to... it's also been a criticism at times that he's maybe not tinkered enough or changed enough, that he sort of sticks with what he knows, and the minimum amount of changes, as Gav points out there. rather than put Holgate in, Holgate had struggled the previous week, but it was Manchester City, potentially the best team in the world. Rather than just put Holgate in at left back again, to put McNeil, but it was a double blow because Everton lost all it. What McNeil offers going forward, which has been so much in recent weeks, and like as Gav said, that all the changes that facilitates in putting him back there. I think that everyone was trying to work out when the team sheet dropped just what the formation was going to be. Some of the local journalists were talking to Joe and I, and some fella gone on the Echo website said, well, Liverpool Echo says this, and we were like, well, we are the Liverpool Echo. That's us who's just said that. BBC had Everton lining up 3-6-1 or something like that, so we were all sort of scratching our heads how it was going to be. So I suppose he does have it on the one hand. It was always going to be a tough ask, as much as we say, Everton have been so poor this season. Everton have been so poor on the road. So actually, to expect a team who's only won 2 away games all season to go and win back-to-back games, even if Wolves are, and quote unquote, on the beach, especially once they get the noses in front. I think we've got to look to the positives in that respect. Yeah, if Everton had won, it would have made it a lot more straightforward. But this team's been so poor. We can't expect them to just go and win in any away game. And then that's took me on to a point last night when I was doing the talking point piece. For the first time in Everton's history, we're using the 3 points of the win system, which has been used since '81. Everton are going to finish with fewer points than games played. And now that's a sort of a measure how bad things have been at Everton this season. So on the one hand, he probably did get away with it. There was some sort of questionable tactical decisions and a lot of people out of position, but I'm not too sure how we can be in a position where we expect Everton to win any away game, no matter what the stakes are.
Joe, do you think the enormous, the how big the game was bigged up and what was expected of Everton, everyone knew that this season, they probably couldn't afford to lose and stuff like that. Do you think that almost played into the thinking of Sean Dyche overcomplicating things? Because, like Gavin and Chris have both already alluded to, confusion was there 2 minutes past 2 in the team sheet dropped, and by 98 minutes, well, even a full time, confusion still reigned because people weren't quite sure what they just witnessed in terms of, I saw one tweet in the second half saying this is just 11 players on the pitch, there's no formation, it's just 11 players on the pitch. Do you think the enormity of the task on Saturday maybe played into Sean Dyche overcomplicating things a little bit?
I don't think I do, to be honest. I think sometimes... I think the state of the side on the final whistle was understandable. Obviously, it was a mess in terms of who was on the pitch and when they were playing. But given the fact that Everton came into that game with so many injuries, and by half time they'd lost Nathan Patterson, their only fit first team fullback, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin, pretty much their only trusted first team striker. You can understand why it was just chaos by the end. But the starting lineup confused me for the same reasons that have already been mentioned. It's interesting because Sean Dyche, speaking before the game, said he picked a side that he'd set out to win the game, and I don't really understand the logic in that, because I think if you're going to win the game, I think you'd have I know he struggled there, but I think I'd have just played Holgate at left back, kept Dwight McNeil, the most effective attacking player that Everton have had in recent weeks, in position, kept Iwobi in position, kept Garner in position, and just changed as little as possible. But once he did what he did, once he made the decision to play McNeil at left back, what really confused me, I suppose it might be telling for whatever happens in the summer, is why Demarai Gray wasn't involved. I don't really understand the logic of bringing in Onana, putting Iwobi out of position, putting Garner out of position, when really you could have solved all those problems by, Demarai Gray has spent most of his career playing on the left wing. Or I get that there'd be an issue in the sense of, there'd be a fear of Traore targeting McNeil down the left, but these are kind of this was a game in which Dyche had no choice but to take a risk. So really, you try and just load the chances in your favour, don't you? And if you could have kept, if you could have kept McNeil on the left, ideally I'd have kept McNeil on left midfield, but once he's put McNeil at left back, he could have just put Garner. He's got one wing, he can keep Iwobi in position on the right, he can keep Garner in position where he's done so well in the middle. And he's changing a lot less then, isn't he? And it's far less of a thing for Everton to the players to try and get their head round, because there's a lot more of a consistency, something that he values. I think sometimes, let's get this straight. If Everton stay up, Sean Dyche has done a very good job. That is a success, and he deserves credit for it. He picked up a side in a relegation spiral with a squad that probably isn't really good enough to stay in the Premier League, and on top of that, it's been hit with injuries and suspensions. If Everton stay up, he's done very well. I think sometimes he perhaps almost overthinks things. Or perhaps maybe even has a almost slightly higher opinion of his tactical nous than maybe is warranted, or maybe he's cleverer than the squad that he's got can operate at, because it was a bit of a mess. When the team, like Chris says, when the team came out, we had no idea what he was doing, and to be honest, when the game started, I think it felt like that, and Everton were under the cosh for the first 10 minutes of the first half. Understandably, Wolves targeted McNeil on the left. Everton struggled to deal with it. A few good crosses went in. Luckily, they didn't get punished. And then, by half an hour, Everton were just starting to get on top. So, that trajectory may well have continued had Patterson not gone off injured, had, Traore not scored that breakaway goal, had Calvert-Lewin not got off injured. But, Everton just in general got away with one, I think, on Saturday, because once that goal went in, and the goal that should have been conceded, just like I wrote in my match report, so many times this season, from Aston Villa on the second day of the season to Anfield a couple of weeks ago, how many times have we seen an opposition player pick up the ball 30 yards from their own goal and just do real damage through the middle of Everton's midfield? And once again, you just see the lack of, it's unpalatable to say it, but just a lack of intelligence. You can call it cynicism, but just take Traore out on the halfway line, take a booking. Just do it. Just stop the chance before it becomes a golden opportunity. Unfortunately, Everton didn't do that, and that nearly cost them the game. And then the beginning of the second half, really, Wolves could have scored 2 or 3. And I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned a lot, but I think we may well come back to at the end of the season if Everton do stay up, or particularly if it's that point, that goal that saves them. Pickford made a save at 1-on-1 in about the 95th minute. I think it was Nunes that was through 1-on-1 on goal. And, you could understand almost, it felt almost, as he went in, I think in the stadium, it felt like an inevitability that he was going to score, because it was almost like, why would Pickford even put up a fight here? This game's gone. About to blow the whistle. It's happening. And, Pickford stuck a toe out, sent it out for a corner. If that had gone in, obviously Everton don't get the point. They don't get the momentum. And that, once again, it could be a case of Jordan Pickford's, just being absolutely integral to anything good that this Everton side does. But to answer the question, I was confused by the tactics at the start. Don't think he got it right. Did get away with one, but we take it.
Gav, do you almost think Sean Dyche is coming under a little bit of scrutiny from supporters, because you look on social media, obviously we should always judge it on social media after games, but you look up social media after games on Saturday, there's a lot of fans kind of questioning Sean Dyche's tactics, like what we just discussed there. And this isn't the first time in recent weeks we've seen fans kind of left a little bit confused, a little bit perplexed by what they're seeing from the Everton boss. Do you think he's always coming in for a bit of scrutiny, and obviously the season's only got one game, but next season the pressure really will be on him, because fans just won't be or accept what they're seeing. They'll want a clear indication of how the team's going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fully deserved, as Joe alluded to there. I think we've spoken about some baffling decisions up top. The omission of Damari Gray when he should have played, the long-term omission of Yerry Mina, some of his in-game changes on Saturday, bringing Michael Keane on as a right back, having refused to play him as centre-half when Holgate was probably the better option. Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, I think there has been a series that over the last few games that he's got away with. At the same time, as Joe was saying, he's had suspensions, injuries, so that's been putting sticking plasters over the team, in a lot of areas. So I think that also needs to be taken into account. But yeah, I think that's where it was talking about. Kind of when I said was I happy at 99 minutes rather than 98, a little bit, because it's the implications of that performance and the thinking behind it about for the long term going into next season. About when there's more pressure, there probably won't be the, God knows how much what we've got to spend during the summer. There may be a similar summer last year. We've only got limited resources, and you've had more time to prepare the players. Is Dyche smart enough and flexible enough to set the team out over a 38-game season? And I think there's a few people concerned about that, and I think that's rightly so. Because what I've seen so far, notwithstanding, the sort of, the issues he's had to manage, that's still in the not proven category for me. I think if we stay up, I think that's been a good achievement, but we're still only averaging a point a game, is it something like that? Simply, yeah, we won't. Let's basically stay up. It's because of the inadequacies of the other teams, isn't it, really, below us? And as Chris said, it's going to be like our worst points performance season ever, probably. And that does raise questions for next year. And, I think Dyche has definitely got to show himself to be a little bit more imaginative and, like say on Saturday, think about it. Think about the wider implications of selecting McNeil at left back and decide not to and play Holgate at left back, because in an important game he allowed the whole shape of the team to be disrupted. And that's the type of thing you need to avoid in future. Be a bit more flexible with your thinking as well. So yeah, and fans are saying that, and I think that's a fair shout. Even if he does keep us up, I still think there's question marks.
Do you not think as well, though, Gav, just to stay on this, because obviously you know what you're saying there in terms of injuries and suspensions. Obviously there's nothing he can do about them in some respects. But some of the decisions he's made off the back of them incidents or them injuries have been his own making. You look at like Decore being sent off against Tottenham. He could have gone like for like a week later at Man United, no issue. But then he completely changed the formation to 4-4-2 and tries to do something totally different. I think, although he's had issues to contend with, a lot of the kinds of questions that have come up have been from his own making more than actually the issues of suspension and injuries.
Absolutely, and then exacerbated the decision of Man United by doing exactly the same. Something that you think he scrapped at half time and started the Fulham game exactly the same manner, and then changed it after 25 minutes, 30 minutes when the game had sort of gone by then, and we got a damaging home defeat. So it's that type of stuff. It's like, Yerry Mina has made an enormous difference to us, hasn't he, the last 2 or 3 games. He scored on Saturday. He's quite clearly, what we see, he's quite clearly our best centre half. But he's been sat on the bench and nowhere near the team for 15, 16, 17 games under Dyche? When he's been fit? Well, that's... I don't really understand that. And I think he has been loyal to some players. And whilst at the same time not giving other players who deserve an opportunity, not giving them a chance. So, yeah, I think... But it's a bit of a funny time to manage. So I'll judge him more next season. But from what I've seen this season, I think people are right to say, put a few question marks against his tactical and team selection acumen.
There was one real concern for Everton. So he's obviously Nathan Patterson goes off, which was far from ideal and far from planned. But just before half time, Dominic Calvert-Lewin looks to get him behind. All of a sudden stops, appears to hold something. I suspect the groin that he picked up the injury from against Manchester City. He's lying on the floor, and you see I was obviously watching the home. You see the physio indicate to make a change, and you start thinking, oh, this could be one of these days. Not what Everton needed right now this minute, was it? No,
because as we said, she played Dyche's first game, went off after an hour, and he was all the way out, wasn't he, for almost 3 months at Crystal Palace. And he started the last half a dozen games. And although his only goal has come from the penalty spot, we all can see, can't we? Completely changes the way Everton attack it, the way Everton look at
the team in general.
Yeah, just the way he brings everyone else in there. He's able to lead the line in a manner that none of the other strikers are. It all goes back, I guess, to January and, last summer and January, because they brought in Neil Mopé, who's anything but a like-for-like replacement for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I mean, he's been failed by Everton, and he got one goal all season. Mopay, you know, he wasn't prolific in the Premier League, but you know, playing within that Brighton system, he was always decent. So yeah, it's a massive concern. Dyche said that to me after the game on Saturday. He was obviously suspected hamstring for both players, Calvert-Lewin and Patterson. Probably he wouldn't have known yesterday. He was saying today might be when they settle down and perhaps have a better idea. So whether we hear anything or not over the next 24 hours, I don't know. But yeah, you just got to hope if there's any way. You can't be totally reckless about people's bodies, but if there's any way Dominic Calvert-Lewin can play against Bournemouth, surely he has to do. And if he can't, then there's a big issue there, because whoever comes in, whether that be Mopay, Gray, Ellis Sims, there's no like-for-like replacement, is there? So yeah, it's like a nightmare, really. You know, it was seen to be vindicated, to be justified, keeping him out for so long to get him right, which kind of looked, but you know, at first. But these last couple of games now, it's easier to go off early, half-time, than just before half-time, both of them. And yeah, it's got to be the biggest concern within the camp going into the Bournemouth game, because you hope Mykolenko will be fit to return at left back. And even if, unfortunately, Patterson can't feature, at least you've got Mason Holgate, who can play right back, probably a lot more sure. Yeah, I'm not too sure what position Michael Keane ended up playing at the weekend. Started off right back, then he mostly centre forward. Maybe that's a shout. I don't know.
I feel his best contribution
you know, against Chris Pass, but yeah, because if Calvert-Lewin can't feature, then it's one to discuss later in the week, and maybe you'll know more then. Yeah, there is no like-for-like replacement yet. You just hope that he's there for when Everton really need him.
I think the worry, Joe, on Saturday when Calvert-Lewin went off was, you know, Everton had done okay with him. You know, he'd had a couple of chances himself. He'd had 2 headers and a shot which hit the side net, but they, you know, generally looked like they were doing okay. But in the second half, we saw the kind of Everton that we've become so used to this season, obviously without Calvert-Lewin, where they looked a little bit lacking ideas, didn't have a focal point up top, and it was a bit of a stark reminder, wasn't it, of, you know, come this Sunday, you know, we'll get into it on Friday's pub, but come this Sunday, there would be big concerns and big worries if Dominic Calvert-Lewin's not leading the line, because Everton, although they do have options, don't have options good enough to replace Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably no more damning indictment of the failures at the club than the idea that, you know, in the final minutes of a game, which is potentially crucial to their Premier League survival, you end up with an attack that's spearheaded by Michael Keane. You know, and we know that Michael Keane is good in the box, and several players have told me that he's among the best finishers in training and things like that, but it's not really a laughing matter at the end of the day. And obviously that's probably more a conversation for this time next week, whatever the context of that is. But, you know, Calvert-Lewin, yeah, losing him's a huge blow. I mean, just go back to the Dyche thing, obviously on the tactics, there have been a lot of baffling tactics amid some of the results that have got Everton's position where things could still be in their own hands. One thing I would say is that he's only really gone slightly off-piste when he's been forced into changes. I think one thing it is, there is a clear first 11 there and a setup. There is he has brought a clarity of approach to an Everton side when the squad is fully fit. Obviously, the problem comes with the lack of depth, so that when he loses someone like Decore or Calvert-Lewin or Mykolenko, or not just, obviously, the fullback situation at the minute, it's that the Mykolenko, Godfrey, Coleman, and albeit he's used so sparingly that it's another kind of confusion. Another big question mark over what went into the planning for Everton's season, but Ruben Vinagre, you know, there are 4 better options than McNeil, Holgate, at left back there, that they're all injured, unfortunately, but hopefully Mykolenko will be back. But yeah, no, you're completely right. I think that is the fear, really. That's probably the fear going into Saturday, because I think all things considered, Everton would go into that big favourites, but we probably know this more than the outsider. I think you know, if you're a casual football fan and you support someone else, I think you're just assuming Everton are going to win that. A lot of people just haven't seen how bad Everton are. Like, they're just not very good. And even, you know, with the exception of Brighton, which was, you know, and perhaps Arsenal, which are both wonderful performances, you know, the better results kind of have been a bit frantic and a bit chaotic, and it's just almost been a bit more willpower and mentality and desire that's got them over the finish line. So even when Everton's Spurs team are out, it's still not as effective as it should be. And it's a case of who's going to be injured and what's the knock-on effect's going to be on Saturday, because obviously Calvert-Lewin isn't fit, then that's a big issue. And then also, if Mykolenko's not fit, that's a big issue. Everton start, especially if Patterson's out as well. We discussed this, we had a rare degree of foresight last week when we were talking about just how much more severe Mykolenko's absence is than we perhaps would have anticipated it being a couple of weeks ago. And it just had a devastation effect on the lineup. And like we've just said, Dyche went a little bit more rogue than I think any of us anticipated, and he has to take some responsibility for that. But if Mykolenko isn't fit, or even if Mykolenko is fit, Patterson isn't fit, then we're almost back in that situation again on Saturday, and that's worrying. I think it's the lack of ideas on Saturday. I think for most of that second half, Everton just didn't look like scoring. That's not saying they weren't trying. They just didn't look like scoring against a team that, every time a player came off, it was clear it was the last game of the season. You got the three sides of gold underneath the sunshine, just clapping them off, and the players, slowly walking off, taking the applause. Neves went off, and it looked pretty likely that might have been his farewell, because it seemed like a farewell. And even amid those scenes where you've got Wolves side that are making all those changes, that are thinking about the end of the season, they're still a better side, still creating the better chances. It could have been 2 or 3-0 before it got to stoppage time. We've already mentioned the chance that Wolves did have in stoppage time, and in the end Everton got away with it. But I think that's the problem. I think you would like to think with Everton that's on the line and with the Goodison crowd behind them that they'll be able to get the win that'll keep them up on Sunday, regardless of who's playing. But I think that's probably going to be the thing that's lurking in the back of all of our mind, the fact that this is an Everton side that even when it's got its best team out there, just really, really struggle to break teams down. And I think if we get to half an hour on Sunday and it's 0-0, it could start to get a little bit nervous, because I think then the players might start to feel it as well, especially if the goal went in elsewhere to put pressure on. It's not a situation I'd like to be in. So hopefully Calvert-Lewin's back fit, like Chris says. I think this is one of those occasions where, for all the caution that's been exercised from under Dyche, I think Dyche deserves credit for that. I feel like I'm giving Dyche a lot more credit than I feel like I'm being his spokesperson today, but obviously he has had patience with me. It did pay off to a certain extent, but I think this is the time where you throw caution to the wind, and that's not to say you sacrifice a young man's body or anything like that. If he's 75% fit plus, the value of what he brings at Everton side is just so huge. I don't think they could afford to not have him on the pitch, particularly given there's been a few indications. The last 2 games have been quite peculiar in the sense that it felt whilst Dominic Calvert-Lewin was out, Damari Gray was the last option up front that Dyche turned to. He went through Sims first, then he went through Mopai, then he finally got to Gray, and Gray was the most effective. He played really well at Forest, did all right at Chelsea, but he seems to have reverted away from that. Again, Man City second half, it was Mopai that came on, and then even at the weekend, obviously he didn't trust Gray he didn't want to put Gray in the starting lineup for whatever reason. And I think did Mopai come on first at the weekend as well?
Right. Great come on for Calvert-Lewin.
It was great for Calvert-Lewin, so maybe he has got over that. But I mean, I just hope the more players are fit, the less opportunity there is for Dyche to kind of do something mad. and like we discussed, some of the madder calls haven't really worked. So let's just hope that Dominic Calvert-Lewin's fit, and ideally that Mykolenko and Patterson are on the pitch as well. And if they are, I think Everton are massive favourites. If not, then all of a sudden it becomes a little bit more tricky.
Gav, there's probably never a good time for any team to be picking up injuries, let alone. But it does feel like Everton have literally got to the worst point in the season to start picking up injuries. You think of Mykolenko, 10 minutes before the end of a training session. Calvert-Lewin last week seemed to have gambled on this week. It didn't work out. Patterson, pretty innocuous, if I'm being honest. Looked like a bit of a, coming together, nothing more limps off. it just feels that like at the worst possible time, Everton's luck is coming at the worst possible time, essentially.
Well, Patterson's been both
been out for as long as anything I've seen.
Patterson's just been in and out the team, and Coleman's obviously had the injuries. Yeah, and they could be managed. And I think it probably would have affected us more on Saturday because it was in-game stuff. Whereas, notwithstanding what we're saying about Dyche's team selection, we've got more of an opportunity to think about things for this the game against Bournemouth. So I'm okay about the Bournemouth game in terms of injuries because I think we can manage them better. I'd really like to see Calvert-Lewin up top and share the sentiment that even if he's 60, 70%, it's worth throwing on. But don't know. Have we seen? I'm just trying to think of his injury record. When he's gone down injured, he doesn't seem to come back the next game, does he? I think over the last couple of years, he then tends to be out. So when I saw that on Saturday, you're thinking, well, I'm not so sure about next week now. So, but
just to jump in on there, obviously the one time when he has come straight back was Saturday because he came off with the groin issue against City Park. But I mean, for all we know, he might have only been 75% from that. He might already have been,
Yeah. So what we know is if he goes down injured during the game, he's injured. Yeah. It's not going to be like for precaution. I'm going to come back next week fully fit. What we do now is he has a couple of games, gets injured, and then a period of time out. I mean, I think if he probably played on Saturday, but if they'd been at the start of the season, he might not have played them. To be honest with you, as it pans out, I think we're okay. Connor for the weekend in terms of even if Calvert-Lewin is injured, I think that could be managed. And it also depends what we need from the game as well, doesn't it? As well, perhaps. But we can talk about it later in the week. Yeah, it affected us on Saturday, but I'm okay about it for the weekend, to be honest with you.
Chris, no sooner had the full-time muscle blow and found out on Saturday afternoon, and I think Saturday evening everyone calmed down and, be composed their thoughts and stuff. Thoughts quickly turned to the London Stadium on Sunday afternoon as West Ham United welcomed Leeds United. A win for West Ham United would have took them off the bottom three and really put the pressure on Everton then going into the final day. Last week you obviously enjoyed a well-earned day off last Friday when me, Joe and Gav done the pod. Yeah. All three of us I think were a little bit concerned at the West Ham celebrations following the win over AZ Alkmaar. There was a few crates of beer doing the rounds and a few party trays of food by the looks of it, and things looked like it was a bit of a carnival party atmosphere. A few concerns. But come yesterday evening, that's not all we were all concerned about.
Wow, you say that, don't you? I was saying that about 18 minutes in when Rodrigo smashed that volley into the back of the West Ham net. I mean, we had to dig deep again. I mean, that's the thing. It's so debilitating. Is not only you're kicking every ball for Everton, and then there's all these other permutations. I mean, we've got to get through tonight, I mean, fingers crossed on that one. But, it was, I mean, no, you said to me you were fearing Leeds were going to win both of the last two games, and you felt that Wolves was an opportunity lost. Thankfully, that's not been the case now. Big Sam hasn't proven to be the big bogeyman that he perhaps threatened to be when he came in at Leeds United. He's not won a game yet, as he lost at City. They had the draw at home with Newcastle. Now they've lost at West Ham United. I mean, he could still win a game now, but it might be too late for them. It was concerning when Leeds went ahead. But to be fair to West Ham, fair to David Moyes, we've always got good words to say for Davey. He didn't just like throw in the resis, I suppose, like he done was at Brentford the week before. I mean, he made 6 changes, but it was still a strong West Ham side and still had more than enough to finish Leeds off. Although I was shouting at the telly, I wanted West Ham to get another one at the end for the goal difference. When they had the chance there, was it Paqueta, and he tried to square it to Rice or something like that. They were trying to score the perfect goal, but they got there in the end. But another nerve-wracking afternoon. But thankfully, it remains in Everton's hands, and we need that to be the case come tomorrow morning, after as long as Leicester City haven't pulled off a shock victory at St James's Park.
Joe, is it following the fortunes of Everton isn't tough enough, right now, this minute, from the whole range of emotions I think Blue supporters have felt over these last few months. Following other teams, it should just following Everton, isn't it? Because I don't know about, you lads, but certainly someone watching that yesterday was kicking every ball, and you kind of sat there thinking to yourself, it's not even my team playing here, and you're still emotionally engrossed in it. Yeah, it was...
Just before Joe says anything, one Everton player, former Everton player, texted me yesterday morning and claimed he did jelly deals for breakfast.
All right.
I think he was talking. How'd you follow that, John?
I'm trying to work out the relevance, to be honest.
Well, because he was wearing his West Ham. It was very much a West Ham.
Oh, of course, I see. Yeah, but
I don't want to yesterday morning for his breakfast, but was probably still at famous claret and blue.
Well, maybe if Everton stay up, we should try that delicacy when we're down there next season.
But no, Joe, in all seriousness, it's a sign, isn't it, of how frantic and how desperate things have become when you're sat frantically cheering on other teams in the Premier League to do you a favour.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I think, again, this is a conversation, whatever happens, this is a conversation probably for next week, and I think it's probably important for anyone that is listening. I think that, the initial aftermath of whatever happens on Sunday will be all about the, what's happened on the pitch and the implications, but there will be plenty of reckoning after that. Look back at how Everton ended up in a situation where for a second season in a row this is the case, and obviously this season even worse because it's now going to the last game of the season. But yeah, we can kind of joke about it all we want, but it's part of my deal. It's horrible, really, isn't it? I've kind of got myself into a position here where all of a sudden, despite evidence of weeks and weeks of evidence to the contrary, I'm now seeing a lot more demons in that Leicester side than have been visible. I was convinced they were going to beat Liverpool last week, and then I watched that and was reassured by just how appallingly bad they were. Just got to hope that they do the same again tonight, and hopefully it scares me a little bit because obviously one thing Leicester do have, probably more than anybody else I have relegation ballots, they do have players with individual quality that can't just produce a match-winning moment out of nothing in the Premier League. We saw Tielemans goal at Goodison Park, didn't we, on Friday night when they came and did a number on Everton then. But hopefully Newcastle should, if you approach it logically, you would think that a Newcastle team that's got nothing else, no finals or anything to look forward to, last opportunity to play in front of St. James's crowd after their best season in decades, and going... You think they'd want to give their fans, something to cheer when, especially, win would guarantee them top four as well. But yeah, I'm seeing more demons than is healthy, I think, to be honest. So hopefully get through the Leicester game. It makes me slightly uneasy that a draw keeps them in it. But really, if Leicester don't win and Everton don't win against Bournemouth, and they're safe, and you can't ask for anything more than that, really. Not given the situation they've been in the last few weeks and things like that. You just, at some point, Everton have to do the job themselves. And they took a big step towards that goal when they won at Brighton. They took useful steps at Leicester, and the last-minute goal the other day. Of course, it all helps. But I think Gav said in the opening minutes of this podcast, about Everton almost relying on the failures of others, essentially, and that's it. If Everton stay up, really, it will be because three teams are worse than a bad team, I think, rather than Everton having done anything particularly special to having avoided the drop, especially, as Chris says, with what even with a win will be their lowest points tally in, too long to remember. So, yeah, hopefully we get to Tuesday morning. Well, hopefully we get to 10 o'clock on Monday night tonight, and everything, there's a lot more clarity, and it's all in Everton's favour.
Gav, you said last week that Everton fans and used to come one mastermind, and their favourite subject would be the Premier League we're in from about February to now.
Absolutely.
Again, that was another weekend of watching the table, watching other results. And tonight is going to be absolutely no different as Newcastle take on Leicester St. James's Park. You're going to have your black and white scarf on?
Yeah. I wasn't unique piece about Vida's ain't patting on that. We can do that, Leeds, so that won't be anything onerous for me. I mean, because we've not mentioned Forest, have we?
No.
Because we're talking about Forest was still in it, and that was a massive blow when Forest won, wasn't it, on Saturday evening? Because that was, nobody saw that coming. Yeah. I mean, you're in a... I've said a number of times over the weekend, with all due respect to Tottenham, you know what Spurs are like, that you're in a dark place when you're relying on Spurs to do you favours, aren't you, really? But I think if you win on Sunday, I know there's various combinations that can happen, but you think if you win on Sunday, that should be enough. But I will have get me Lindisfarne records out and stuff and all that, and that'll be... But for the older listener, on tonight, and I'll be there. And I think Newcastle they're a bit sketchy for 20 minutes against Brighton on Thursday, weren't they, at 2-1? But I think Newcastle got a lot of firepower, and I think they'll be up for it, as they say. But I said before the pod started, didn't I, that you wouldn't like to think there's one last
crazy battle.
Relegation battle. That's what I'm fearing. That's me fear. So hopefully not. And if you can't see us at the moment, there's a big like cross-shaped light above Connor and Chris, and we'll all be playing to that, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of time for the Geordies. Love the two. Yeah.
Yes.
Bit of local hero fog of the town on your travels like these.
Aye, yeah.
Well, Eddie Howe supports Everton as well. That's maybe you were all baby. That's it. Like, I mean, failed to beat Wolves, and then you got David Moyes, the ex-manager, and Eddie Howe, the Blues supporter.
And of course, David
solid for him.
David Moyes back in next week as well, isn't it? Because Leicester welcome West Ham to the King Power the final day. So wherever you look, there's Everton all over this relegation battle. Wherever you look,
it's like yesterday, isn't it? It was the referee at the West Ham game, wasn't it? Is that an Everton season ticket holder or something?
Boo, just looking for that. Just
Keep quiet about now, guys. Now.
Yeah. I'm not saying. I'm just saying the bad statements of fact. I mean, Joe Robles was in goal, wasn't he, for Leeds?
Yeah. He was in the back of the net when the equaliser went in, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, gents, I think we will leave it there. We will, of course, be back on Friday to preview Everton's huge game against Bournemouth on the final day of the Premier League season. Look back on Sean Dyche's press conference and analyse the relegation picture after Newcastle take on Leicester City tonight. But for today, thank you very much for listening to the Road Podcast.
Are we the lads?